Hi there, let's talk about the famous 4 minutes flat new rule. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, this season in IFSC bouldering competitions during the finals, climbers will have just 4 minutes flat to climb the problems. But isn't that what they had already? No, they had 4 minutes plus. And here's the difference. With 4 minutes flat, even if they are 1 millimeter away from the top, if they run out of time, they will be called off. They cannot go on climbing, they cannot top the problem. Which means that you have to start the problem with enough time to get to the top. With 4 minutes plus, as long as you get on the problem with 1 second left, you can just go on climbing and get all the way to the top and maybe spend 2 minutes if you want. You will not be called off. And over the years, we've had plenty of examples of climbers getting the top in that last try with no time left. But now that won't happen. If they run out of time, they have to stop. Why this change? Well, I think the goal is to make the final more predictable, to make the length, the duration of the final easier to predict. Because right now, it's not that it's absolutely unpredictable, but climbers, as I said, can stay on the wall as long as they want. Obviously, there's an upper limit to that, which comes to, for instance, if it is a really physical problem, they won't be able to hold on for minutes. But if it is a slab or they find some tricky way to rest, and that happened, for instance, last year in Vail, that may make the finals longer and not so easy to predict. And for the IFSC, it's really important to have those deals with the TVs. They have some deals with Japanese TVs, and for the TVs, it's easier. It makes their lives much easier if the finals have a predictable duration. That's also important going into the Olympics. So that's the main advantage. There's an upper limit in terms of how long the final lasts. Now, what are the disadvantages? Because this system has already been tried this season, for instance, in the French Championships and in the QIF. And there are some obvious disadvantages. One is that there's less epicness, less drama, because you lose those final tries in which the climber doesn't have any time left. This is the last try, they have to get to the top. We have that, but now we're going to have to be thinking, okay, is there enough time left? We're going to have one eye on the climber and another one on the clock. And I think that takes away from the epicness of the moment. It's also going to lead to a lot of frustration, because if the climber is called off and has to stop climbing when they are obviously going to top the problem, when they are just a move away from matching on the top, that's going to be really frustrating for everyone, for the climber and for the crowd, and even for the other climbers in the final, because that's not the way you want to win the final. Ideally, you want to win the final because you were the only one capable of climbing the problem. Obviously, there's a time limit always, but when you see a climber there, it's obviously going to top the problem, and the judge just says, okay, doesn't matter what you do now, you run out of time, go back to isolation. That's going to be frustrating. Also, this is going to be a change for the route setters, because with 4 minutes flat, climbers are going to have less time to climb and less rest. So the problems are going to have to be a little bit easier than with 4 minutes plus. And climbers will face really hard decisions. For instance, if they fall on the mat with 40 seconds left, with 4 minutes plus 40 seconds, it's a lot of time. They can just rest for 20 seconds, then chalk up, then ask the crowd for some support, and get on the wall with 3 seconds left. Now if they fall on the mat with 40 seconds left, depending on the kind of problem, they are done. 40 seconds is not enough to rest, to chalk up, to get on the wall, and to get all the way to the top. In some problems maybe, but in most problems that won't be enough. For the audience, it's going to look like the climber is giving up too early. 40 seconds is a lot of time, why not one last try? But the climber is going to just shrug and say, okay, 40 seconds is simply not enough to rest, chalk, and get on the wall and get to the top. And if the climber decides to try with 40 seconds left, I'm going, okay, 40 seconds, I'm going to chalk up, I'm going to breathe deeply a couple of times, and then I'm going to give it one last try. That last try is not going to be a good try. The climber is going to be rushing their way to the top, they're going to make mistakes, it's not going to look pretty when they fall on a move that they already did. So I don't think the show is going to be much better. My opinion about this rule is that I really disliked it. I don't see that many advantages to it, and the disadvantages are really obvious, and we saw that in the QIF. It's not good to call a climber off when they are about to top. It's not good to see climbers giving up with 40 seconds left. And I've yet to find someone who likes the rule. If you like the rule, if you like this change, please leave a comment. I want to hear about that. And I'm afraid this rule is here to stay. I don't see the IFSC changing the rule again anytime before the Olympics, at least. So we're going to have to get used to it. Now, to be fair, we may have some new form of epicness when a climber, is rushing to the top and matches the top with just 1 second left. But, that happens in the semifinals and during the qualifiers sometimes. But I don't see that happening that often because, as I said, the climber is going to be rushing to the top. It's easier to make mistakes. The climber is not going to be well rested. If they're running out of time, they probably didn't rest enough since the last try. So I don't know. We'll see. I also think this rule is unnecessary. I think officials and organizers have different tools to control the pace of the final and the duration of the final. First of all, you can just suppose that the climber is going to take, let's say, 5.5 minutes, and you can just figure out that number. You can just take a look at the last 6 years of finals and calculate the average duration of each try or each problem and say, okay, climbers take usually between 3 and 5.5 minutes. So we're going to suppose that each climber is going to take 5.5 minutes to complete the problem. And then if they use 1 minute instead of 5.5 minutes, well, you can just use different tools to make the final a little bit longer. For instance, you can just take your time when it comes to calling the next climber. You can just tell the brushers, okay, brush a little bit longer. When climbers come out, instead of letting them climb straight away, you can just make them face the crowd a little bit longer. And you can use those tools to make the pace of the final more controllable. Because even with this change, the final is going to be hard to predict anyway. Because what happens if there's a flash fest? If everyone climbs the problems in 1 minute? That's going to be a much shorter final than if they take 3.5 minutes. So you're going to need those tricks anyway. And for the TV and for the live stream, well, that's why you have a commentator, and that's why you have replays to fill in those minutes where nothing's really happening. Also, you have 2 climbers at the same time. You can just make the rule setters aware of the issue and say, okay, try to mix it up. Try to put the woman to climb a slow problem while the men climb a fast problem. So don't put men and women to climb a really flashable problem at the same time, because that make the final much shorter. If the guy flashes the problem, we'll still have the girl climbing the slow technical slab. That's gonna take her 3 tries to complete. So if you combine all this stuff and you make sure that, for instance, the clock works, which is a source of problems in many World Cups, and they waste a lot of time with clocks that suddenly stop working, you can really control the length of the final without changing the rules. So to sum it up, I think that the disadvantages outweigh the advantages, and I think the rule is unnecessary. This change is unnecessary. But as I said, I think this is here to stay, so we're gonna have to get used to it. And hopefully I will be completely wrong and this will be the best change ever. Leave your opinion in the comment. Do you like the 4 minutes flat rule? No. Well, me neither. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Take care.